So aloha, I'm Seth Ladd, producer of Aloha on Rails, and I'm here sitting with Scott Chacon of GitHub. So thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to us today.
No problem.
Scott is a presenter at Aloha on Rails, and tell us a little bit about your talk.
Yeah, so I'll be talking about how Git started. So I work at github.com, and I work on Git all the time. And I give a lot of talks on Git, and a lot of people are interested how it's different than Subversion and sort of how it came about. And so I was interested in the beginning of that. So how they made their early design decisions and how that impacts Git now, and Mercurial as well, since they were started for the same purpose by the same group of people and just went off in different directions. And a lot of people are interested in the differences between Git and Mercurial. And if you look at the first couple of weeks actually of development of both of them, they were started within days of each other. And the design decisions that they made at the time, and sort of how that impacts how they work now, how they differ from each other now, years later. And that was really interesting to me, and so I kind of wanted to share that with people and just kind of take a look back in time at how they developed and sort of how that is different than Subversion. And I think looking at that actually helps you understand why they do what they do and why they're really interesting and helpful tools. And so that's what my talk's about.
Awesome. Are you going to go all the way back to the BitKeeper days and tell about why you didn't get that started? Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, they were both Matt and Linus, were both Linux kernel developers, and it was right when the Linux kernel had to stop using BitKeeper, and they both started their own projects, and there's sort of some interesting history on the mailing list that you can look through now if you really take the time to what the early projects look like and how they differed in how they approached the same basic problem.
Well, I think this is a really important way to look at the technology we use every day, because if you don't study history, you're bound to repeat it. So what's one of the lessons that you want people, or one of the morals you want people to take away from your talk?
I'd like to show sort of the first couple of versions of both of the systems really quickly, because today you download either of the systems and you get this really polished interface. And the first couple commits on both of the systems, I think it's interesting to see how they start. So especially Git was just basically a sort of a key value store of just blobs and SHAs. And I think seeing how to do that, I'd like to sort of demonstrate how you use it in the first couple days.
That's cool.
Because you can still do it that way today. And I think thinking about, and both of the systems are very, very similar in that regard, in the way that they keep their history and their data as a directed graph of content. And I think showing why the original founders of the systems thought that was a useful way of doing source control instead of like a Subversion style way, I think is interesting, and I think it helps using either of those systems today.
I have to ask, what's it like working at GitHub? I mean, this is a pretty popular service, especially in the Ruby and Rails communities, and I think everybody uses it to some degree.
Yeah, it's great working for GitHub. We're able to do, we all sort of work independently and together at the same time, so it's not as structured as other places that I've worked, and I think it's really nice for creative, for being able to do creative things. They're a great group of people to work with, and I get to do a lot of talks like this and do a lot of evangelization of distributed source control systems. I just released a book from
done?
Press. Yeah, I
nice.
just finished
Congrats.
it.
That's awesome.
It's called Pro Git, and I was able to work on that a lot while I was working at GitHub. I think if I was working elsewhere, I probably wouldn't have had the energy or the flexibility in my schedule to be able to do that and complete that. And it's Creative Commons licensed, so I'm able to put it out on the internet so people can read it and learn about Git and stuff. And so I think working for GitHub has been really good for me, and being able to expand my horizons and do stuff that I would not have normally been able to do without having to always justify it to a boss or something. We're all sort of our own bosses, so it's a really great place to work.
How is working in this kind of fast-paced, loosely structured organization with a very popular service, how has that changed the code that you write?
It's really nice. Everything that I do tends to be more additive now. It's not just what I'm putting out there, but it sparks other work, and everybody helps me out with stuff, and so I think
it's social coding,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I mean, really,
exactly.
It's not just a tagline,
exactly.
It's reality.
It's not a marketing thing. It helps me get stuff accomplished, and I really enjoy that.
Well, on behalf of Aloha on Rails, I want to thank you for the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming out.
We're really looking forward to seeing you there, and we'll see you in Waikiki.
Yep, looking forward to it. Thanks.